Thank you. I'm Johan. Nicklas is going to speak later if he has time, but I will be quite quick. I will talk about the first part, the vulnerable neighborhoods in Sweden, what they are, and then Nicklas is going to explain how we're going to try to evolve this method we used further. I first would like to thank you for inviting us to Malta and also for giving Loreen 12 points in the latest Eurovision. That's great, thank you. Hope we can keep up that cooperation in the future. So this is what we're going to do, and we hopefully will have some time for questions, or you can ask us questions during the next coffee break or something, or email us. The contact is going to be in the end of the presentation. We've been working with the concept of vulnerable neighborhoods in Sweden since 2014, so next year it's 10 years into developing this method, and we consider ourselves, we're not done yet. We're going to continue to develop this. In 2016, we started to develop this in cooperation with several universities in Sweden. Right now it's Lund University, where Nicklas is from, and Malta University, and also the University of Defense in Sweden. When we started, it was paper and pen. People drew maps, like they had maps in circled areas, and I'm going to show you how it looks later on. Now we moved into the S3 products using Survey 123 and dashboards and so on, and it's been like a huge lift for the people doing this, and it's a quite big job in Sweden to do this. Since 2018, every local police district in Sweden used the same method. Sweden is consistent. We have 95 local police districts in Sweden, about 10.5 million inhabitants, and one police authority since 2015. So now every local police district in Sweden does this once a year. The vulnerable neighborhoods, it's neighborhoods that are vulnerable to criminal influence. They have criminal actors that are active in the areas, selling drugs, influencing, like by doing criminality in public spaces. The people living in this area are like afraid, feeling of unsafety, but also put under pressure from these criminal actors. All our neighborhoods are deprived neighborhoods. They're poor neighborhoods, high employment rates, and so on. But all those neighborhoods in Sweden are not vulnerable neighborhoods in the police eye, because we need to have the concept of criminality and the local influence, the pressure from the criminal actors. A lot of these areas, these neighborhoods, they were built to make better living conditions for people, but quite early on there were also problematic areas of people moving in, like poor people, people from different parts of society were congregated. So, no, I can do both. Yes. So this is Sweden. And a vulnerable neighborhood, we have 3 different classes, and I'm not going to go through them. We have not so much information yet in English, but we have some in Swedish. So if you want to like read Swedish or have papers that could be translated through Google Translate, which I know they wanted in Germany, we can send those. But they have low socioeconomic status. There's a criminal impact on the citizens. The criminal actors are active, visible, and are influencing the neighborhoods. They have open drug scenes or drug markets. People are selling and using drugs in all of these neighborhoods. That's the dot on the map. They have low institutions trust in the police. They don't trust the police. They don't really want to cooperate with the police. Part of that is because the criminals will put pressure on people cooperating with the police, turning witnesses, handing over information. But they also have high feelings of unsafety and low trust towards society. It's hard for the police to work in these areas. It's been a concept in media in Sweden, but also abroad, about Swedish no-go zones, where the police refuse to go. But that's not true. We never had those areas. The police has always gone to those areas, but in some areas they have to find different ways. You don't go in just one patrol. You have to have 2 patrols going in. You have special, safer police cars, because there was riots before in those areas. So we adapt to the situation, but the police still goes to these areas. So the concept of no-go zones, which was termed in media in the US, I think is wrong. The highest grade of vulnerability is when the systematic use of violence and threats towards the people living there when they cooperate with the police or even talk and speak to the police. But also people having businesses in these areas are subject to this pressure. The criminals are in their businesses, they can be forced to store drugs within the local businesses and so on. Sometimes by force, sometimes people choose to cooperate because there's money in this also. We have signs of alternate governance in these areas. That means that the criminals or other people in the area has the power to make decisions for if there's a conflict in these areas, you don't go to the police or the society, you go to someone else. One of the criminals, or other influential person in these areas who has gotten the right to say, you did wrong, you did right, you need to pay her this amount of money or do this and that. So they mediate by themselves. So when the police and society step in, they say, no, we don't have a conflict, it's already solved. We had more extremists in these areas, like foreign fighters coming from these areas, some of those. And in these areas, we say it's almost impossible for the police to fulfill their task using like the normal procedures. As you see, we're high up in the north of Europe, but we don't have the vulnerable areas like they're still below in the middle of Sweden. They use our tools, so we have areas which they describe to be able to foresee problems before they evolve too deeply and try to break the negative spiral. So we have right now 61 areas in Sweden, which we are from a national level are saying is really vulnerable, that we need to have focus on. But I think we have almost 200 areas in Sweden that are reported in every year that we go through and see, would this fit the national list? These areas are also from its later years now. The government are interested in trying to help to break these areas, the situation. So they give other authorities in Sweden money to work first and foremost with kids to help them to break the spiral, get more people in the social service working out in the field, more activities, constructive activities for the kids. So there's a lot of focus and money going into these areas right now. It's about 5% of the population lives in these areas, and it's like higher buildings, quite big families. So their concentration of population. It's really a small part geographically. It's 0.02% of the area in Sweden. But we have these concentrations. Last time up until it was 21, 40% of the shootings in Sweden were in these neighborhoods or connected to actors from these neighborhoods. So 5% of the population, 0.02% of the area, and 40% of the shootings are connected to these. The drug markets, selling and using of drugs in these areas, more illegal possession of guns, more guns in general in these areas than in other areas. We talked the last presentation about the encrophones. We had the encrophones, we had the possibility to see how many encrophones were active in these areas and other areas in Sweden. These areas had more encrophones active, and the phones were more active, sending more messages, communicating with people in other areas or abroad, mostly Spain. From a Swedish perspective, the encrophones were a big marketplace for drugs and violence, selling and buying drugs and selling and buying violence. So these areas were heavily involved in this digital market. It's harder to investigate crimes in these areas when we look at how many crimes could we report to the prosecutor, because people won't cooperate with the police. They won't testify, they won't leave. So it's harder to investigate crimes because of the relation with the police. People are afraid because we have incidents where they, like violence towards people or criminal damage, explosives towards apartments and so on, if you cooperate with the police. We have this method of doing from a scanning from the municipality area, 290 municipalities in Sweden. Do we have any problems using 26 questions? If you have problems over a certain level, you go further on, answer 80 questions, and these are the tools that are developed with Malmö and Lund University. So they answer this every year. Then they also make a list of the person that are the criminal actors. The local police, the police officers working on the street are providing us with information. Who are these actors? What are the age? And we have really some young kids down to the ages of 10, 12 and upwards. And also what kind of position do you have? It's not a network, it's not a gang. It's a company of people working together with the criminal activity. Sometimes different networks, sometimes just one. But we also have areas within these smaller areas where they usually hang, where they sell drugs, spend their time. And it's information for places that we could address, trying to change these places or go to if we want information about these individuals. One of the things that we learned that I think is I think it's funny or interesting. This is the city of Malmö. This is also the city where the next Eurovision is going to be held, so you can take notes. This is what we call a strategic map. It's living conditions. Red is poor living conditions. It's official statistics broken down on 250 by 250 meters. Unemployment rate, percentage of people with foreign background, single parents, how many kids up until from 0 to 19, level of education and so on. Worked into an index by Nicklas and his colleagues, and it's also from red, really poor living conditions. So poor living conditions, it's hard to fulfill your dreams and do what you want to do. So that's like how Malmö looks like. Poor living conditions are not spread out randomly through the city. It's concentrated in different areas throughout the city. This is the areas that the Malmö local police district reported to the Swedish police or to us. This area is more of a bar, pub, restaurant, night area. So that's not a vulnerable neighborhood. The other are on our list. If this was a competition, when I asked, could you, John had 3 more books to send out in the lottery, and people who made the best circles around the red squares would win those books, that wouldn't be that good. The good thing about this is that the police made it with the paper and pen 4 years before we had the living conditions. When they were asked, where do you have problems of this kind? They made those circles, and we had the argument that this is special conditions in these areas. And when we got this map through Lund University, we could really show how the problems that the police see are correlated with the poor living conditions. This picture is if you keep your head still, it would be better. Otherwise, you can feel dizzy. The circles are the number of kids 0 to 19 in each area. So we see the overlap of poor living conditions and big groups of kids and young people, and where the police are experiencing problems with violence, with shootings, with open drugs sales. So this is something that's really important. Just going to take a sneak peek. Yeah. It's important for us because this is really a good way to get good dialogue with the municipalities and other agencies, because they also experience problems from the beginning. Why should we work with police problems? It's crime, it's drugs, it's violence, not our problem. These areas also tend to have lower grades of, when you had the corona vaccine, lower grades of people getting vaccinated, fewer people partaking in our elections. They have they don't live as long. more problems with child health and child dental health and so on. So there's a lot of municipalities that see problem from their perspective. And when we can show it like this, it's easier to get a common okay, we need to do something about this problem and work, because living conditions is not for the police to change. We can work with the crimes and the problem related to crimes, but we can't change the level of education or unemployment rates and so on. We need other partners to do that. And by doing this in this tool and being able to share and show on a map has really increased the interest from the society all around us.
Before I'm jumping over to the follow-up project, which I also will present regarding risk terrain modeling, I can also add that these areas are also very famous for recruiting young people, as Johan mentioned, into criminal activities. Okay, a follow-up project on that is a little bit more broader in its perspective, because we will a little bit look at the whole space in the cities, not just the vulnerable areas. So someone at the police department had a competition of finding the longest name of a project. So before you have to breathe in between when you read this. Develop crisis preparedness to lead and communicate and coordinate location-based. I need to breathe. Action against system-threatening crime. And this project focuses a lot on crime reduction through another method that hasn't been presented here today, risk terrain modeling using SIMSY's RTMDX tool. SIMSY is one of the sponsors here, as I understand. And participants in this project are, as Johan mentioned before, it's Lund University, it's the police, it's the Defense University and Malmö University. So we have a collaboration between the police and different kind of universities here, which we find very successful. I will come back to that. So in this project, we focus a lot on different ways of developing knowledge and tools to detect and identify geographic environments, actually, and places where the risk of crime is elevated. We have in brackets, thank you very much. Hello? Yeah. We have in brackets also the system-threatening crimes and antagonistic threats, which is also a huge part of our project, which we look at. In more practical terms, we are looking at specific crime codes here, crime types, when we analyze these kinds of threats or these kind of crimes. Or, as I mentioned, this will be done through risk terrain modeling in a Swedish context. It hasn't been used so much before. There are some studies done by researchers as Manigirell and others, criminologists in Sweden, but not in a systematic way, working together with different police districts. So the focus here is very much on the space, the location here. We do involve this. There are connections also to objects and individuals, but the main focus in our project here is to produce different kinds of maps and also related information that can be used by the police in their proactive work in different ways. We do have a couple of police areas, a police district involved in the project. We do have the three largest metropolitan areas in Sweden, Gothenburg and Malmö, as Johan mentioned before, and also Stockholm, and one other, which is Borås. And they are all situated on the south part of, if you look at Sweden along, we have north with reindeers and so on. But in the south, there are more populated areas, and these are the areas we actually focus on in the first step. A little bit about the project organization, because it can be important when you run a project like that with a lot of actors involved. We have a project leadership, consisting of Natural Operational Department, Swedish Police, and then we have a project team, and Johan and Kalle and Gabriel is related to this team. And we have a contact group, which is also important because they are receivers of our research and our maps, our analysis in different ways, because they are some kind of, passage points for their organizations. They will spread the information of what we are doing into their organization and try to do something about it. We have a steering committee also that takes care of the budget and so on. When it comes to the process, the project process, we do have in the middle, so in some way. So we are in year 2 here. So we have established some kind of knowledge about what risk-frame modeling is, and so on. I will come to that. And we have been visiting Kansas and talked to colleagues from Texas and so on that has been working with that. So that we got inspiration from the US, and we are on the way. That is also a big, huge part of our projects to cooperate with international success areas that have been working with this. So we are in year 2 now when we're trying to test and implement the RTM in its Swedish local context. Can be some challenges. I will also come to that. Next year we will try to come up with sharp analysis and maps so that can be used in their local police areas. It's a little bit the same as I said before. We're trying to test and so on this year, and we will try to implement it next year. So, what is risk-frame modeling? I think some of you are already familiar with that in different ways, and it's a lot about being in the right place at the right time, preventing harm. It relates a lot with other kinds of tools that has been presented here by Dr. Cheney, at least, or Professor Cheney here. It's also about increased understanding why crimes occur at the same location. That's a dimension which I think is powerful with risk-frame modeling. I will come to that. And also why we do have chronicle areas with crime, with criminal activities over time. And it's a lot about diagnosing these places. So, if we look at how we work and how it can be, presented in a pedagogical way, we do have a map, of course. You spot the crimes here, and you can create, you can use kernel density or the hotspots techniques to actually show that you have significant clusters in your space. We do have the places here with, in this case, violent crimes in Botkyrka, which is one of the local police areas. That's good. That's a good start. But we know where it is, so we do have information about where we have the crimes. Of course, that's the good start in the beginning of a crime analysis. But what we also need to know, what we're trying to add here, is the circumstances that are surrounding these kinds of criminal activities. So by just in a schematic way showing that we do have a lot of subway stations here as a factor. I know that it's called risk factor in risk-frame modeling, but before you know it is a risk factor, you have to try it out, in order to see if it has an impact on the crime. So we add, in this case, factors that are believed to influence violent crimes. Specifically, we are working with physical factors, which can also add social factors, as the vulnerability, the index Johan talked about before. So the next step here is to add another layer. And the layer could be, tobacco stores, because there are also prevalence of tobacco stores, and we have ATMs, so there's a combination of services and different kinds of factors around these places. So we add a new layer, and this can be restaurants with alcohol serving permits, which is also an important factor because it can give information about where people or criminals can stay in the physical surroundings. We have ATMs when they can get money. Sweden is a very digitized society, a digitized country. We use not so much cash, but the criminals do, so we need to have information about where the ATMs are. So, and then the subway stations, where we have a mobility dimension, people come and go, so it's easy to take the subway, and there is also transferring systems as a bus station, very related to this. Then we have also, we feed that into the system, the RTM model. It means that it calculates the relation between the crimes and also these factors behind. And the system produces a map which shows here a small blue, a couple of squares on each other, which means that here we have some kind of significant relation or statistically significant relation between these factors and also the crime. So then we can start about to talk with the police about why do we have this kind of relation. So the good thing here, or which can be discussed also, but is that it produces significant, squares or spaces where we have higher risk, relative risk values. It means that we have proven that, or proven in some sense, we have proven that some of the factors might have an impact on violent crimes in this case. But these also present other areas that are around with not so high levels of crimes, but potential places where actually you, as a police department, can work proactively. If you get a point, hopefully. So this is not just answering the where question, but it also you start to elaborate with the why question. Why do we have crimes in a specific place? Because we have a couple of factors that can impact the crimes. So how much time do I have left? 2 minutes. Good numbers, clear numbers. This is operational through risk-based policing, of course. We will. I was quite inspired by Professor Cheney's, way of evaluating the work that the police has done in specific places. So that has to be a component in next year. Something about how we work. We do meet up with these police districts quite frequently, meet 5-6 times a year. And we do have workshops, experiments. We work very close with the police, local police districts. And also they can choose their outcome in this case. What kind of crime do they want to focus on, and so on. And then we have a team of research and analysis that supports them in these ways. A challenge here is that we need to have risk factors to feed the system, or factors to feed the system. I know that in the US it's very easy to acquire this kind of information. In Sweden it is not, because we have a lot of different data providers. We need to buy it, and the data is not ordered in the way we want to use it in the system. So there are different, cultures, different problems that we have to come around. So what we are working, especially now, a lot with risk factors to get in, to retrieve that, to use that in our RTM analysis. This is an example how it can look when you use a system. In this case, we do have risky places, and the factors in this case with higher risk values are restaurants and stores, and also schools is written in Sweden, but you also have a risk factor called open drug scenes, which is also used in the system. So there are a lot of factors we are feeding the systems with. So I can jump that because it's a lot about what RTM is and how it has been used around the world. You can read about it later. But the possible success factors here, we do have, as I mentioned before, a close collaboration between the research and the police. And that is very, very good because we can adapt, we can check the research, how it has been done for a specific crime code in the world and so on. We do have good data from the police. We focus a lot on crime prevention, and we have a strong support and engagement in local police districts because they don't use these kinds of methods a lot. Probably they need more tools than RTM. We do have a mentor, a continuous discussion also with Jonas Bachman from Kansas City Department. He's one of the mentors here at Lund University with Johan Kardell and Leslie Kennedy. That also helps us a lot. So when we have this follow-up research. I have 30 seconds, I will try to share. But we do have challenges. There, of course, we are in the beginning of something that we don't know how it will end. So we're testing and trying and so on. We have very excessive variables, and lack of that is a big thing in Sweden, in many police departments, the lack of technical skills and also the analytical skills. They don't have so many analysts on the local plane. I think that is something we have to work with within the Swedish police departments, so both on the national, regional and local level. Do you want to end? You have minus 10 seconds.
Yeah. The only thing you need to take away, because we've been working with developing stuff for the police, Swedish police for quite a long time, different projects. This is the main thing, to involve the local knowledge, the local police district, the local police officers. What do they know and what do they need? Not always what they want, but what do they need to be able to make their work more efficient. Well, you need to work closely with IT divisions and get a technical solution. We had that, but now we hired him at our place, and now we can work without the IT division, which sometimes is easier. But then developing the national method, one way to do it, one way to describe it, because it's easier to compare and do stuff, and do that in cooperation with research. We have a lot of people, we are a small group working, a lot of people had taken some credits at university and so on, and have some exams. But we also need researchers to make proper studies, to do stuff, to make sure that the base of what we do is stable, but then also always build on the local knowledge. That builds on relation. The example from Texas, setting up a new unit or doing something, shadowing people, understanding their work conditions, what do they need. That's the main point in evaluating or developing new stuff for a police agency, is because going in as an analyst on a national level and trying for me to think that I know how the reality looks for local police district officers, that doesn't work, and they will hate me when I come with a solution. I need to have that solution. They will be in the same boat. So working closely together, that's the recipe, and that's why we often, on a long term, we have the possibility to make changes, to develop new stuff that actually people like working in. And this is how you get in contact with us if you need, or through Sam and the rest here. Thank you.